I'd like to call this regular commission meeting to order for Tuesday, February the 12th, 2013. If you have a cell phone, either turn it off, please, or put it on vibrate. The invocation will be given by Pastor Mark Wilson from the First Church of God. And if you'd please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Mayor George, Commissioners, thank you very much for allowing me the privilege to be able to address you. Our Father, we bow before you tonight as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and we seek with everything in our heart, Lord, to glorify you, to let you be known. We think of the President will address us in about an hour and a half, and the words that he would speak to our whole country, Lord, to address the problems and dilemmas that we have. And tonight there will be discussion in this room, Lord. There will be business taken care of. And I pray as we enter into this Lenten season, Lord, that tonight we would begin by listening to you, to hear your still small voice. Among all the words and all the voices that we hear throughout a day, Lord, that we would open up in our hearts to truly listen to you, to hear you address us and what you think we need to do, what you think we need to address, and the problems and things in our community. That, Lord, we would truly listen to you. And we thank you for blessing us, for loving us, and for adjourning, Lord, in this meeting tonight. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start off with consent agenda items. Regular City Commission meeting minutes from Tuesday, January the 22nd, 2013. The 2013 appropriation ordinance number AO-12-26 in the amount of $208,599.45. The 2013 appropriation ordinance number AO-13-02 in the amount of $1,116,263.16.
Read that again, sir.
$1,716,000. What did I say?
116.
Oh, $263.16. The action to appoint Gary Bradley to the KMEA Board of Directors through April 30th, 2015, and the action to appoint Gary Bradley to the KMGA Board of Directors through August 13th, 2013. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. Our finance director has gone home sick, so hopefully we'll be able to answer these. Neither one of these questions are large ticket items. They wouldn't be breaking the bank, but on the -02, page 2, there's it almost appears to be duplicate entries for Jim Bradshaw's American Water Works Association. Is that a quarterly or paid? There's 4 separate entries there. They're all dated the same day. They're all the same amount. They're only $42.50 apiece.
It's an annual, but it's split between multiple departments.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right, thank you. And one more on page 20. There's a string of entries, again, not that much, but to the Fred Pryor seminars, and all of it is noted as Excel class training. Looks like software training on Excel. Question is, where was that training conducted and who did it? all right? I notice every once in a while in the newspaper that the college is all the time offering these kinds of classes. And I realize timing might also be an issue here. But in the future, Mr. Bradley, if you would, take a look at that. And if it's possible and the timing works out, I'd just as soon this kind of training be done locally so we could keep the money here.
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I had.
I've got a couple. Let me get it back up here. It's on the O2, on page 2, and down at the bottom, it's Jenkins, Strauss, and Salmon, PL, for $1,990. Does anybody know what that is for?
That's attorney fees for the Southwest Power Pool revenue requirements.
Okay,
They're handling that for.
thank you. And then on page 3, Kansas Department of Emergency for $110,000.
That was the refund. They paid us too much on a project related to the flood, so that's a reimbursement for that.
Okay. That's all I have.
I have a question about the atrazine settlement check that we received. What fund was that deposited into? Not sure? Okay. And
I'm not sure. I do know that we're not limited on what we can spend it on, since we've already spent the money and it's reimbursing us. We can spend it on whatever we want.
we'd already spent it.
Well, in theory, we have already spent any money that we needed to mitigate the damage caused by the atrazine in the past.
Right.
So it's not anything that there's still levels of atrazine or anything like
Right.
that. This is for things that occurred in the past, so we're free to do with that money whatever we want. That was in the opinion from the judge.
My preference would be I didn't vote for this in the budget session this past summer before you arrived, but the commission voted to spend several $100,000 of the protested amount of the nitrogen plant money for 2013, and just in my opinion, I'd like to offset some of that spending with that money and use that instead of money that there's a great likelihood we're going to end up having to pay back plus interest someday. That's just my opinion. And I think we need to find a way to not spend the other part of it. And going forward, we need to stop spending any of it. The taxpayers are going to take a bath in the next couple of years when this thing finally shakes down, if it comes out at all not in our favor. And Lord knows the school district, the college, and the county have not been doing their part in spending, in saving this money. They've been spending it in some cases like drunken sailors. And I want to do everything that we can for our citizens to not put them in a position to have catastrophic increases in their property taxes to try to repay this money. We've been more responsible than the other entities have, but I think the only truly responsible thing to do is to not spend any of it.
Just for clarification, school districts and college budgets are totally different than city. And so their books have to be handled different than city. Really, it hasn't been, they don't take care of business like that.
And I understand that's what our school board has said, but the current president of the State Chamber of Commerce, who up until last year, I believe, was the state speaker of the House or the Senate,
House.
said that was in fact not true in his opinion, and that really gives me pause when somebody from that level of state government says we might be on the line to pay that money back.
They can make mistakes too, though, on that level.
Yeah, well, and your point's well taken, but it's also my point that we don't know for sure, and we could be
That
in the
point is
line of
taken.
fire, so.
That point is taken, and I agree with that part.
So I think we need to find a way to not spend that money and repatriate it to a fund where it's set aside and left alone, because we could really be shooting ourselves in the foot long-term. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Okay. Anything else? I would accept the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented and the action to appoint Gary Bradley to the KMEA Board of Directors and the KMGA Board of Directors.
Second?
Motion was made by Commissioner Jones and seconded by Mayor George to approve the consent agenda as presented. Commissioner Horn,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye. Next item, public hearings, special presentations and proclamations, and seeing none, we will skip down to comments from the public. If you would like to address the commission, please step to the microphone, name and address.
Mayor, Commissioners,
Sir.
I'm Max Williams, 3408 West First, and I just come back as a follow-up on the concerns that I'd brought to you about a month and a half ago. Just wondering if anything's been done or if anything's going to be done. The first item was the traffic light at Luark and Highway 166. Why is it needed? One car comes up on Luark and stops 30 going east and westbound on 166. Has anything been done about that? Has anybody checked into it, see if the highway, does the highway department have a say on it?
They-
Have we
they
asked
actually
them,
control
can we
it.
change it? You know, to me, it ought to be a flashing red for Luark and flashing caution for the highway.
I did,
KDOT is studying that right now. They've just.
I was gonna say, I saw that their traffic counter out there here not too long ago where they're counting the traffic, so,
We can't change it without KDOT.
yeah, it's KDOT approved.
Did KDOT authorize to put it in there to start with then?
Yes.
For Walmart,
Walmart ain't there now.
I know.
Okay. The other thing was, I was wondering about some kind of street repairs on Boulder. I don't know if anything's happened there. I do appreciate they put a street light in at the intersection there so we can see the potholes at night now.
You can see where to turn now.
Yeah, but the potholes are still there.
And I hit them myself today, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they just fill the potholes with gravel would help. Might keep you from tearing your car up. The other concern I had was Channel 7, and as you told me, there was nothing the city could do about that. The only question I have about that, it's my understanding that Cox does not have an exclusive with the city of Coffeyville. Is that right? Does anybody know?
I do it. It is not exclusive.
So any cable company could come in and make an offer to the city?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all what I wanted to know.
You gonna bring one in, Max?
Well, I might.
Okay, good.
Are you open to spend a little money?
Competition, I like competition. I think it
Okay.
does good.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
See you, Max. Anybody else?
Commissioner George, Commissioners, fellow citizens. Chris Williams, 2203 West Second, Coffeyville. I bring 3 items to the table today. First item I'd like to address is the street repairs made by the city crews and the contractors here in the city of Coffeyville. I've noticed more street construction, street repairs in the last 2 to 3 weeks than I've seen in a long time here in Coffeyville. I'd like to acknowledge the city manager and the city work crews and also the contractors and this commission for taking those and spearheading those projects. Obviously, it's going to make a difference in our community. Second thing I'd like to bring to the table is the zoning reordinances or the zoning ordinances, the proposed changes to the zoning ordinances. I haven't seen the exact proposal that's been put forth. However, from what I've gathered through my own independent research and through the basically what I've read in the paper, it's my belief that this commission should wait until the next commission is seated to address that issue. First reason I think is this is going to needs to undertake a vigorous debate. We need to look at the potential impact on local businesses and the potential impact on businesses that are looking to relocate or relocate here in Coffeyville. Some of the proposals in that particular zoning proposal that I've seen, I think are not conducive to businesses. It would in my opinion, impact the local economy where people probably would not want to build in Coffeyville. One of the things that I've noticed is that what I've looked at is what businesses would not be here right now if they had to follow that particular, some of those zoning proposals in that proposal. There's quite a few. You can drive up and down 11th Street, which one of the things in there is like a facade on some of the businesses that would be built in the future. Some of the businesses that are presently here may not be here if they had to follow those ordinances. So that's one thing that I want to bring to the table. The third thing is I didn't have this in my notes, but I don't know what drunken sailors there are spending at the county, but I have kind of take exception to that because I know that there's a lot of employees up there that haven't had raises in 6 or 7 years. And I can tell you from my own perspective, I don't believe there's drunken sailors spending up there. So that's my, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on. New business, resolution number R-13-09, a resolution to execute a memorandum of agreement with Curtis and Linda George related to the Klein Road Improvement Project. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments and address questions. And the first thing I want to say is I am not related.
Mr. and Mrs. George live on the northeast corner of the intersection of 8th and Klein, and we've come to terms that this memorandum of agreement is a culmination of our negotiations with them. In lieu of any kind of a cash payment to them, they've agreed to accept improvements to the real estate, which would include the construction of a new chain link fence with uniform slats along Klein Road, which we believe will immensely improve the appearance of the intersection there, to widen and improve their driveway servicing their property on 8th Street, to install a chain link fence along the alleyway using their existing fence material, and install a temporary fence while the improvements are made. They were concerned about preserving some trees and shrubs on the west side of their property, and we've identified the trees and shrubs that would remain in place to the best efforts of the contractor anyway. And everyone is satisfied, so if you all approve this, we'll move forward with at least that aspect of the easement.
Great.
If there's no conversation as it relates to this, I move to approve number R-13-09 for adoption.
Second?
Motion was made by Commissioner Horn and seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve resolution number R-12-09 for adoption. Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Next item, resolution number R-13-10, a resolution to approve a cereal malt beverage license and sale of cereal malt beverage at the Veterans Memorial Stadium for the Windsor Place Relay for Life team. City Clerk Cindy Price will make comments and address questions.
Whatever you call it. Mayor and Commissioners, the Windsor Place Relay for Life, the team is planning an event. It would be a fundraising event for the Relay for Life, which is a cancer fundraiser. Their date is April 20th, and it's at Veterans Memorial Stadium. They're having a concert come in that evening. They have applied for a cereal malt beverage license so that they can sell 3.2 beer during that event. They've met all the criteria to receive a license. However, our existing ordinances prohibit the sale of alcohol in any city-owned property parks. So it would take an exception from the commissioners. This is much the same as we do during the fair and rodeo when we allow the fair board to sell beer during the rodeo events. If If you have any questions, I'll attempt to answer them. There are two representatives, Megan Pierce and Sabrina Horner from Windsor Place from the Relay for Life team. They certainly could answer the questions. We've been in communication about this event. They are planning to be very vigilant about checking IDs, and we'll have bracelets. Once somebody has been ID'd and purchases a beer, they'll put the wristband on so that, and they'll have to wear that, and that way they can't trade the wristband to give it to somebody else who's not of age.
What band is playing, do you know?
Easton Corbin and Chris Cagle.
How much are they having to pay for this?
We don't have a special event provision, so it will be the same as a regular on-premises cereal malt beverage license, which that's $150 plus the $25 state beer stamp. That money goes to the state.
Is that set forth in city ordinance?
That's yes, that's in our fee schedule.
Well, I guess ultimately what I'm getting at here is, can we waive that fee?
You could, yes, except for the $25. That has to be sent to the state.
Okay.
You made reference to the Fair Board exception that's granted. Will this, is it the Windsor Place intent to have the beer sold in a similar venue, a beer garden, or will it just be on tap, here it is, and be on your way?
We'll have a beer tent, and that will be out in the open. The Coffeyville Police Department is providing security for the evening. We've already talked to them and met with them. Everyone will be ID'd and have the wristband, like she said, that can't be removed or traded or anything like that. So they'll be able to walk in the stadium with the beer outside of the tent, but again.
So they won't be restricted to any particular area?
No, but they will have the bracelets, and the PD, as well as all the event staff, will know that what to look for if they see a beer. They'll know to look for that wristband.
It will be restricted to inside the stadium, however.
Yes, inside
Right.
the stadium.
Chief Celeste, any comments? What about additional, you said the Coffeyville Police Department's providing security. Is this additional security? Are we pulling officers in and incurring overtime in the process?
I'm not aware that we've made that agreement. I have made that agreement. I am aware that they are planning on having alcohol at this event, but I'm not aware of any agreement we've made to have extra officers there.
So your third paragraph statement here says Coffeyville Police Department will be providing security.
We have talked to the Coffeyville Police Department. I have the gentleman's name that we've talked to. And he is the one that said absolutely they wouldn't have any problem doing it. I can get his name. And we will definitely, get back with the police department on that.
I think Chief Celeste might be interested in knowing who that is.
Yeah, I will definitely get you the name.
Commissioner Jones, I see the wheels turning.
I hate to be a wet blanket, but I hate to approve something if I'm not sure about the paragraph 3, Coffeyville Police Department will be providing security for the evening. I hate to okay something when it's not set in stone, I guess.
Well, we had talked to, I can't remember, it was a lieutenant. I have his, like I said, I have his name written down at the office. And we did talk to him. Marty Hill, and Chris Jones, or Johnson, who are on the Fair Rodeo Board, they're also involved. Marty Hill has been our agent for the whole entire thing. So he's been on it with all of it. He's the one that gave us the name at the Coffeyville Police Department to contact, which we did. We've also offered, we're not asking the city police department to put out any extra expense. We have offered to pay whatever that costs for the security. We certainly don't want to put the city out anything.
Would you object if this particular resolution was tabled until the next meeting so that you could come to some kind of a formal arrangement with the police department?
Absolutely not. That would be perfectly fine.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask for it to be tabled also.
Okay, I move that the resolution R-1310 be tabled pending additional information between the Windsor Place Relay for Life team and the Caulfield Police Department concerning security at the event.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Commissioner Jones to table resolution number R-13-10. Commissioner Horn,
Abstain.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Next item, resolution number R-13-11, a resolution to execute a tower land lease with Midwest Fertilizer for the installation, operation, and maintenance of wireless equipment. IT Director Chris Felix will make comments and address questions.
Mayor, Commissioners, good evening.
Good evening.
As you're well aware, the deployment of the in-town network is ongoing. At this point, we are at a standstill with what we can activate and what we can keep functioning. We have some issues with some of our line of sight to our existing towers. Out of the 200 or so access points we have deployed, 60% of them are up and active right now, but the remaining 40% either cannot see Southern Hills, the stadium, or A-Sub where we have our towers, and we're needing to put up another tower. And the best option we could come up with was actually leasing space on the grain elevator. Attached to my staff report is the lease agreement with Midwest Fertilizer. It would be for $6,000 per year with a 1% increase each year. And I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you might have regarding that.
What's the terms of the termination?
As far
In other words,
as,
if you wanted to terminate it at any time, is there, got to give notice, it's got to be for a year?
if I remember right, it was 60 days.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll move to approve resolution R-13-11.
I'll second the
Second.
motion.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to approve resolution number R-13-11 for adoption. Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Next item, resolution number R-13-12, a resolution to execute a contract for deed with George and Sheena McElroy for 1109 West First Street. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments and address questions.
Commissioners, it's my understanding this house has been listed with American Homes for several months now. The original asking price was higher than $48,000, and Chuck reminded me tonight that he came to you several weeks ago and suggested a reduction of the purchase price based on the recommendation of the realtor, and that it was reduced to $48,000. The city did receive an offer from Mr. and Mrs. McElroy for the full $48,000, but they want to purchase it on a contract for deed arrangement where we would basically be the lender, carry the note. They're proposing to pay $1,000 a month for the months of March, April, May, June, and July of 2013, and then amortize for 10 years, make payments for 5 years, and have a balloon payment then in 5 years, and hopefully they'd be in a position to then go out and get a conventional loan to pay the city off at that point in time. The property would be sold as is with no assurances as to its condition. The city did get a clean title policy at the time it acquired it, but we're not proposing to purchase a title policy at this time. If the buyers want a title policy, they can do so at their own expense. They would pay interest on the unpaid balance at 8%. Hopefully that would provide some incentive for them to go out and get a conventional loan as quickly as possible. I did request from Carla letters from their landlord and from their employment. Haven't received those as of yet. She indicated in an email to me last week that she would try to get those from them and make sure they were still wanting to move forward with this proposal. I'm always a little bit concerned about contract for deed arrangements, but according to Carla, as I mentioned to you, there's been very little interest in this property. The size of the house is a problem, apparently. She thinks that these are good potential buyers. They obviously are interested. If you read the correspondence from them in the agenda packet, they want to live here. So if you decide to proceed with this and you're okay with it, then my suggestion would be that you approve it subject to the city's receipt of letters from the landlord and the employers that are favorable in nature.
Should we just table it and wait for those letters to come first?
I would be in favor of doing that, tabling it. Also, what about a credit history check? Just a standard credit check?
Yeah, I had mentioned to Carla that we might like to see at least a household budget, and we would keep that confidential.
And if,
I'd like to see a credit report.
I think if you saw the letter, there's some information in there
Yeah,
that
if you
would
read that.
indicate that there will be a negative credit
Right.
situation.
That's the reason they want a contract for
That's
deed.
the reason they want a contract for deed. You know, and when the original contract came to the city, one could actually interpret it that they wanted to pay $1,000 for the first 5 months, $200 a month. But Carla clarified that they're offering to pay $1,000 a month for the first 5 months, which is, you know, a significant upfront investment, assuming the payments are made. It's not a perfect scenario. There's obviously some risk. On the other hand, the house has
Well, if
not.
it's on contract, it's still ours anyway.
It's yours, yes.
I would be in favor of going along with Commissioner Edwards, of tabling it until we get the information that you had asked that has not yet been provided.
I would like to also bring up something else to the commission. I would rather see us I don't want to get in a situation with this, hypothetically, if we sold this as a contract for deed, we pay Carla her commission all up front, assuming that we're going to get the $1,000 a month for the first 5 months, and then they walk away in month 2, we're out money. I would rather see us pay commission based on those first payments to cover it, to make sure that.
And that was actually proposed.
Okay.
My suggestion was that we would pay her 1/3 of the payments and we would retain 2/3 of the payments until the 6%
Okay,
commission
great.
was paid.
Great. You're ahead of me, Paul.
Yeah.
Where in the contract does it cover the people who'd be leasing or basically contract for deeding this house from us having insurance?
It would be in the contract itself.
Okay, because I didn't see it in what's in front of me here.
Yeah, that was one of the things I mentioned to Carla. If we approve this, we would actually have a separate contract for deed. This is just
a formality contract.
That's basically right, yeah.
In the event it was a default in payment, how many payments are defaulted before the contract is voided?
You know, typically you let them go maybe 14 days overdue, and then at that point you declare the contract basically void and you retain what they paid, consider that to be rent. And, you know, hopefully they would vacate the premises amicably at that point in time.
And a lot of times too, and Paul is well aware of this, but a lot of times too, Paul will have a quitclaim deed made back from them to the city. So that way if something happens, all they have to do is refile the deed that's made to the city to make everything whole.
Yeah, that's right.
And then all we have to do is evict them. But it's not only the payment, it's the insurance and the taxes all have to be kept to date, or it's a violation of the contract.
Would delaying this until the next commission meeting, another 2 weeks, cause them any undue hardship?
I don't think so. They wanted to make their first payment in March. I would not want to give them possession until they at least made their first payment anyway. So if we come back on the 26th, I'll tell Carla that the feeling is generally positive, but we need to get that documentation.
Yes.
I still have to wonder if we wouldn't be better off keeping it on the market to just sell it outright and wash our hands of it. I mean, it might be a short-term loss against a long-term headache. You know, of course, you don't know until you get into it,
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 5 years down the road.
Yeah, you hope they're true to their word and want to make Coffeyville their permanent home, and they'll be good residents, good citizens.
Move to table resolution number R-13-12 for, until the next meeting.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Edwards and seconded by Commissioner Jones to table resolution number R-13-12. Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Item 5, resolution number R-13-13, a resolution to execute an agreement for residential solid waste collection services with Waste Connections. Treasurer Angie Naden will make comments and address questions.
Mayor and Commissioners, the last 2 meetings we have discussed our waste collection services agreement. Our current agreement with Waste Connections is expiring on March 31st, and the last couple meetings, like I said, we've discussed the different options that were bid, and at the last meeting, the commission came to a consensus agreement that we would retain Waste Connections for our residential trash service for the next 3 years. Staff recommends approving the contract as presented in your packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll move to approve resolution R-13-13 for adoption.
Second.
Now, I also would like to make a comment. I would really like for Waste Connections to look at some kind of recycling. Really look at it real hard. We need something to start with, if you guys would do that.
We did include a recycling option in the bid, and
I understand,
Right.
Angie, but there was other options that they can look at, and I think they'll go for that in the future.
we can certainly discuss that with them and see what we can bring back to you for your consideration in the future.
Great.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve resolution number R-13-13 for adoption. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye. Item 6, resolution R-13-14, a resolution to execute an agreement with Solid Waste Collection Services for the city-owned properties with Republic Services Allied Waste.
Same situation. We've discussed this the last couple meetings, and consensus at the last meeting was that we go with Republic Services Allied Waste for trash collection at city-owned facilities. And staff recommends that you approve the agreement as presented in your packet.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution R-13-14.
So move.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Horn to approve resolution number R-13-14 for adoption. Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Horn,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Item number 7, ordinance S-13-03, the first reading of an ordinance to approve an annual renewal of the 10-year property tax exemption incentive for four-state maintenance. City Manager Gary Bradley will make comments and address questions.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you. There was a exemption, an abatement that was approved 4 years ago for Four State for the expansion of their property. It was the second one that they had. They had previously had a 10-year exemption as well that exempted the part of their property. When they did the addition, what this exempts from personal and real property is only the incremental part of the building, the new that was added. We continue to collect 100% of the taxes we're due for what was abated the first time and what was originally there before that. Under the ordinance and the statutes, we're required to give you an annual review of their activities in relation to that. That information is provided as an attachment. Ms. Naden had prepared Exhibit A that shows where they are at relative to where they said they would be. You have to understand, I think staff's position on this is that we're providing you with the information and the review as required by our ordinance and the statutes, and recommending that you take into account not just the jobs that they said they would create, but also the amount of compensation that they're providing overall. My understanding is those are the types of things that were taken into consideration in the past. And just that you weigh the project in its entirety and its impact on the community in determining what rate you will pay or you will give them an exemption at. You're not required to give 100%. However, historically, the city has given 100% exemption for the abatements for every previous, my understanding is for every previous abatement we've done. It's supposed to be tied, according to the language, to the jobs and other factors, so you have the discretion to decide if you want to give an abatement at a 70% level, 80%, 90%, and certainly the 100% that we've historically provided. And I will say that while the number of jobs is not where it was projected to be, sometimes it's hard in that economy, the way that we were at the time, to project where you're going to be without knowing whether or not the economy would have fully recovered by now. I did, in speaking with one of the owners today, I learned that they're actually higher than they were. They've added a job since this information was compiled or since they reported it to us. And what we do is take the quarterly reports. So since the last quarterly report they filed, they have added another job. But the compensation that they're paying is considerably higher than what they had projected in the average salaries for those 30 employees that they do have. So it's kind of a quality of jobs provided as well. And the owner's here to answer any questions that you may have from him as well.
I have a question for Tom. If you could come up to the podium.
Good evening.
Hi. Under the number of employees that you have, how many of those are part-time?
I think 5 or 6.
Okay.
And we had there's a couple additional employees towards the end of the year. One full-time, one part-time that we were paying through a temp agency, so they wouldn't have been on. We're at 31 employees now. I think the average was 30, up about 3 jobs from where we were last year. Payroll up, so, 8% sales growth for the year. I think that part-time, we have 5 part-time people.
Okay.
Historically have carried 2 or 3. Had used more part-time people for our summer work through the summer of redoing and refinishing gym floors last year. Simply just due to the fact that in the beginning of this abatement, we were working diligently on regionalizing the company and found that to work a little bit better for us. So, without digging through 30 pages here, I'm going to say 5 or 6.
Thanks, Tom.
I think if you had to trade a handful of jobs that you're short compared to your projection against how significantly higher the average actual wage is, hourly wage, it still comes out in our favor. So I frankly don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, your average hourly wage goal for 2012 was $13.89, and it came in at $22.20. I mean, we have to do everything that we can to recruit and retain jobs that are paying, $20 an hour and plus. So.
And actually, too, there was an issue a few years ago where a few more of those jobs were regional jobs, Joplin, Kansas City. And the last year, we've actually, hired within the community here, and are asking those people to travel. We found it better than trying to go out and regionally put those people in place. So the jobs that we have increased are Coffeyville jobs. They're not Wichita, Kansas City, Topeka jobs. So I think that helps. And one other comment, is the quality of jobs are there. It's really hard. I told Gary today, I think the numbers were kind of thrown together in '08 when everything was rolling pretty good. And, we were all throwing a little bit of a curveball. And we are growing the jobs. We're not where we were, but we're glad to be growing still and be adding jobs. And, we're working every day to try to accomplish that goal. Any other questions?
These are good jobs.
Any other questions?
There's no other question. Move to approve ordinance number S-1303 for first reading.
Second.
Question at
We need
100% level?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Commissioner Horn and seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve ordinance number S-13-03 for first reading. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Item number 8. Thank you, Tom. We really appreciate you being a local business.
Thank you, guys.
Resolution number R-13-15, a resolution to purchase a 10-foot frog slide water feature. Oh my gosh, for the Aquatic Center. Deputy Public Works Director Jim Bradshaw will make comments.
Mayor, Commissioners, staff has determined that the existing frog slide located at the Aquatic Center needs to be replaced. The outer layer of the slide is coming loose from the concrete base, and after we closed for the season and winterized the facility, we found more problems within the actual slide. The rubber material is actually splitting. The slide has been in place since the opening of the facility in 2002. Staff has had a company come in to evaluate our existing slide, and they determined that they were not able to refurbish it. We then attempted to notify the manufacturer of the slide, only to find out that it went out of business. We then started looking to locate a replacement slide that would fit our existing application, only to find that a new 6-foot frog slide would not work on our existing pad. Therefore, we looked into a larger slide that would fit over our existing pad and mount to the floor of the pool. We did have a manufacturer representative come and take photos and measurements to determine that a 10-foot frog slide would work for our application. Sent a memo dated January the 30th, 2013, covering some of the details of the events. The estimated delivery of the slide is 6 to 8 weeks after receipt of order. The city staff will do the installation and required plumbing connections after it arrives. Attached are the quotes we received and the specification sheet for the slide. Therefore, city staff recommends authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute a purchase order with Arlen Company Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $20,901.50 for the purchase of one new replacement 10-foot frog water slide. Try to answer any questions you might have.
That's a big frog.
It's
quite a bit
Yeah, it's
bigger than
big
what's up
frog.
there.
I was going to make comment. These ceilings in here, how high do you think these are?
8 foot.
Yeah, probably closer, 9 at least.
Yeah, 9 to
So what's do you have an estimate on the height of the top level platform when a small child climbs the top of that frog and sits down, how high above the pavement are they?
Well, keep in mind that the water level is approximately 2 foot deep in that area. So the base of the slide and everything and the frog is actually covered with water. So, and in the spec sheet, and they're all fully enclosed as they go up into the stairs, as the spec sheet shows, and there's handrails. And that is a feature that we keep a lifeguard on at all times while the facility is open, to monitor how they're getting up into the slide and whenever they come off the slide.
Okay, so doing some quick mental math, they probably wouldn't be more than 6 or 7 feet
Yes.
off of the surface of the water.
The existing slide now is a 5.5 foot slide, and it sets up on an 18 to 20 inch base up off the floor now. So you're not talking a whole lot more than that.
Jim, I think
Okay.
we can arrange where you can go out and get on the slide.
I did that a year ago. My nephews talked me into doing that, and I'm still going through therapy because of it. No, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I guess the deep end of the pool for you isn't very deep.
If not, then I move to approve resolution number R-13-15 for adoption.
So move.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Commissioner Jones and seconded by Commissioner Holmes to approve resolution number R-13-15. Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 9, resolution number R-13-16, a resolution to execute an agreement with SFS Architects for architectural services. Boy, Mr. Bradley, you're getting the workout tonight.
Mayor and Commissioners, I think there are enough whereases that were included within the resolution and quite a bit within the agenda cover sheet as well to give you information regarding this acquisition. It essentially goes back to the sales tax that was passed in November of last year. In order to do the improvements that are contemplated in what the voters approved, it's necessary and proper for us to hire an architect to design those improvements for City Hall, the fire station, the roof for the community center, the tuck pointing and new windows for the Perkins building, the improvements to the library. So staff, in accordance with the city's procurement policy that was adopted in 2005, did a qualification-based selection of architects. We sent the information to the American Institute of Architects chapters in Kansas, Northeast Oklahoma, Kansas City, to try and get the word out to their members. We had several companies that came down and took tours of the facilities, talked to us on the phone. Some expressed, that they'd love to do it, but they're too busy. Others, just couldn't align a team, but we did get some very qualified architects. We had a very good group of staff that went through those responses to the request for qualifications and narrowed it down to a list of 3 firms. We then brought those 3 firms in to interview, and we were very impressed. I think any of the firms that we received submissions from could have done the work. But in the end, we felt like SFS Architects was the one that was most appropriate for this job. They had a lot of experience, particularly in the area of renovations of existing buildings, existing fire stations, police stations, city halls. They had a fair amount of work in historic preservation as well, which is applicable to the Perkins building. They've done work on libraries, youth centers. They were familiar with the different types of flooring. Everything that we needed, they have experience in. And so staff's recommendation would be that we enter into an agreement with them for a not-to-exceed price of $95,000. That's for the first phase. The first phase, they would be coming in, taking a look at everything to figure out exactly what it is that they're going to have to design and design around in order to correct the challenges that these buildings have. It's also, there was an aspect of financing. They're going to, go through and do an analysis for us to let us know whether or not it's more feasible to do it on a pay-as-you-go basis, because I know there were some members of the community that felt like that was the approach the city should take. There were other members who said we need to just issue bonds and do everything. We want to do our due diligence and make sure that whichever method we take is the one that gets the city the most bang for its buck. And there's also a question of operations and how we continue to function while these improvements are going on. It'd be very hard to operate in a police station with all these improvements going on. We're going to have them take a look at, is that the best approach for us? Because it could be that that's the cheapest method. Could be that the contractors are probably going to charge us more and take longer to complete the project if they've got to work around us. We really just need to look at, what's out there for us to rent, how easy would it be to get into, how long of a time would it take, and maybe a way that we can flow staff and different things through an area, fix an area, that kind of thing. So they're going to do all that analysis and then come back to us with some recommendations and a path for moving forward from there.
And then it's more money?
And then it's the actual design work, yes. And this actually includes all the way through schematic design, so it is a substantial portion of the design work included in this. They can't make those kinds of determinations without going through and doing some of the design. So they'll still have some design left, but it won't be the entire design left.
Do you have any idea what their total complete fee would be on this?
We don't, and there were firms who indicated that they could give us a, take it or leave it, this is, our price. These guys are billing us by the hour, and I think if you look through, their hourly rates are actually fairly affordable. Architects are cheaper than attorneys. No offense. But they had very affordable rates, and they're not going to do any work that they don't have to do. And going through and doing this analysis really allows us to narrowly focus their scope when it comes time to do the actual design. So narrowing that scope means that they will do as little work as possible. They'll bill us as little as possible, and they're not going to bill us for anything that's not done.
And we'll have staff going around with them as they're,
Yes.
okay.
I noticed this is a Kansas City, Missouri firm. By chance, have you worked with them before?
I have worked with this firm before. I had worked in some capacity with most of the firms that we received submissions from.
In fact, one of the firms that we received a bid from actually was doing the state capitol.
Yeah.
So there's no speculation of how much this would eventually cost? No speculation at all?
You're welcome to speculate, but I think you're meaning from me.
But it's kind of like shooting in the dark. We don't know where we're going.
Yeah, but it's unfortunately, from my experience, it's probably a higher number than people were kicking around. Because we really hadn't done any planning, we hadn't done any design, and I think it costs a little bit more than people would expect, and I don't know the extent to which those numbers were built in. It's usually around 7 to 8% of a total cost. So if you're looking at $5 million, you're looking at $400,000.
So you're speculating with me.
Well, only because you kept giving me that look like I want a number. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be 400,000, because there are some issues with this building, and any of you that have been through this building know that it may take a little work to design around some of these things.
Sure. Thank you for speculating.
And in cases like the fire department, where you're doing a really small addition and you're not getting a lot of bang for your buck, that design cost is higher as a percentage than it is for a total, for a bigger project. But some things like a roof aren't that hard to do.
No.
So the cost for those projects should be a little lower.
And by the way, it's the only look I got.
Any other questions?
And as I read in here, this architectural firm will work with the people in each affected department to make sure, especially at City Hall, where we're probably looking at completely revamping the floor plans of the first and second floors, to make sure that what we come up with and what we end up building is functional, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing they do, is they take what we have and kind of what we'd sketched out, and they sit down and they talk about adjacencies and workflows and try to make sure that whatever we get in here is utilitarian.
Okay.
And they have done police departments?
They have.
Any cities that you can come up with, like, have they ever worked with any cities that we could reckon with? I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I know first from personal experience that they worked with the city of Green Valley as an architect to do some stuff there. They designed the city hall in Lee Summit. They designed a parking structure. They had done quite a bit of work in that area. They've done work throughout the region, really. Tony, do you recall specific?
I know they've done a lot of historical buildings, was in their portfolio, and came with a lot of good qualifications in their portfolio.
And Chief, they'd done a lot of fire stations, right?
We've done a lot of fire stations, Wichita, Kansas City, Raytown.
If there's no more dialogue, I so move to approve number R-13-16 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Horn and seconded by Mayor George to approve resolution number R-13-16 for adoption. Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Wonderful.
Item number 10, resolution R-13-17, a resolution to authorize the submission of the Airport Capital Improvement Plan data sheets to the Federal Aviation Administration. Engineering Superintendent Scott Massman will make comments and address questions.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This is an annual process that we submit every year, and the particular projects that are presented to you result from years of work, and as we do these projects, we weed out to the next project. So in the natural order of things, the first project is to construct the snow removal building. And if you've been out at Bob's maintenance shop, you know that he is in desperate need of some more room. He's got a very large tractor in there, which we use for snow plowing. And so that project is very much a necessity. And then the other projects all deal pretty much with making our runway access much better than it is right now. You have to back taxi if you want to go to the very north end of the runway, and that's a bad situation. With the parallel taxiway extension, that will be eliminated. The taxiway number 1 extension will join with that so that a plane can get to the north end of the runway. And by the way, winds are usually out of the south, so the north access is very much needed. Then the need for T-hangers is very much the case. We have our T-hangers full right now, and so there is need for more. And according to the projections, we're going to see more and more traffic at our airport. And so that's why that project is there, and then an overlay slated for the next year.
Now, how do you get to your conclusion that we need more T-hangers?
We're full right now. They're all full, and the projections are that we're going to see increased air traffic at our airport, and that's going to mean we're going to have more pilots there.
I'm a little hesitant, and only to build more, only because I remember 10 years ago, not you, because this wasn't in your purview, but I remember being told that all of our golf cart sheds were full on Hillcrest, and we needed to build more. And we built them, and now we're renting them out as storage sheds. So I know that maybe we need to look at possibly replacing what we have out there in some cases, because some of them seem to be in pretty bad shape. Do we have
And they
people-
are, we have some drainage problems, although some of that was rectified. The very east T hangars are actually within the building restriction zone, which, you know, it's been grandfather clause in because it's been there so long, but it would be nice if it were eliminated.
And I will say that of all the departments, this one seems to be the one area that I can think of off the top of my head where we do an exceptional job of long-term and medium-term planning and getting really good grants from the federal government. They're usually 90-10 and 95-5 grants, aren't they?
Yes, for years it was 95-5, and now it's 90-10.
Yeah.
So that has changed. So that's a little bit of a more chunk on our side.
Yeah, so it's commendable that there's, and I see again in this report that we're projecting out quite a number of years in the future. I do have one request, and I don't believe the city operates the airport on a day-to-day basis. I need to be educated on what kind of traffic comes in and goes out of that airport, because I honestly have no concept. Is there any way that we
We
could
do
get-
have those numbers, and I can get them to you.
I would just be interested to see them in our
It's pretty
package.
surprising, actually.
Yeah. I'd just like to see those numbers maybe once a month or once a quarter, just out of curiosity, because I need to know for my own benefit what kind of traffic's going in and out of there.
Did that increase from 5 to 10% come as a surprise, or was that anticipated?
It was anticipated.
Okay. Also, I noticed the hangars, the new T hangars that you address, they're pushed clear out to 2017. Do you have a waiting list now?
I believe we do. There's two.
Okay, so if we have a waiting list, why is it pushed clear out to 2017? Why isn't it backed up into closer years rather than pushing them out that far?
The FAA likes to see consistency with your submittals, so they expect the natural order of things to progress from the years previous.
Must be
Okay,
two.
so we're talking about taxiway improvements and extensions first, then hangars.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Then I move to approve resolution number R-13-17 for adoption.
So move.
Motion was made by Commissioner Jones and seconded by Commissioner Horn to approve resolution number R-13-17 for adoption. Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
That was a very thorough report you gave us in our packet. Thank you.
Thank you.
He always does a good job.
You bet.
Item 11, comments from commissioners and staff.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm proud to report that the Coffeyville Police Department has a new employee. Our new employee works for Scooby Snacks, and is working out very well. We have a 2-year Belgian Malinois that's now a member of our department. We picked him up last week. He was about 2 weeks ago. He was flown in from Holland, where he was bred and raised, and we're really excited about this addition. We think this particular canine is going to work out very well, and we'll start that training process here in a few weeks. It'll take about 10 weeks to get the dog fully trained and certified, and then we'll be back to introduce him to the commission and the community.
And speaking English.
Yeah.
Will
Bring
the
him in.
dog take commands in foreign language?
It will. The dog and his handler will have a special set of commands, and they will be in another language. And that's to protect if you're around the dog and you're just having a conversation and you accidentally say something that might be a command, it takes that risk out of the conversation.
What did you say to the dog that tried to bite you?
I didn't say a word to him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know Dutch?
Should be okay then.
Any other staff have anything to say?
I pointed out to you earlier that we're going to start giving you monthly reports, and those should be very detailed. I got that information from staff last week, later in the week. Unless the mayor is going to discuss our trip to Topeka, if he wants to, I would defer to him. That was the only thing that I would have to report on.
Well, I was really going to defer to our illustrious commissioner here. Now, I was going to say something about it, but I didn't know if you were.
The only thing that I was going to say is that I thought we had very productive meetings with our legislative representatives, and was pleased to hear that they're looking out for us on several of the issues that are important to this community. Transportation funding and several different arenas that we had very good conversations with them about.
I would add to that. There had been some concern in the community prior to the last election that we could conceivably wind up with both our legislative and Senate representatives, both being from non-Coffeyville representatives. And based on our meeting this last week, I don't think we have anything to worry about. They're representing us very well.
Was there any kind of comments on the real property versus?
Yes. Senator King mentioned that the bill hadn't been introduced yet, but I noticed today we got an email blast that said it was introduced. But there was a discrepancy over one word in it. Proponent wanted one thing, the others wanted something else. And I just barely read it today before I come to the meeting, and I don't really know what it says. But they did introduce a bill today in the House.
And does that bill have a number? So we can kind of keep an eye on it? 2285. 2285? Senate?
No, House bill.
House bill? 2285.
We talked to Representative King, or excuse me, Senator King, and we also talked with Representative Kelly, and in fact, we had lunch with him, and he was even gracious enough and bought us lunch, which was good. Well, like I said, Gary said, we had a good conversation with both of them. We talked about the issues that we felt was important for Coffeyville, and they said they would keep watch over some of this, and they all agreed for everything we were looking for. The chamber was also there, and a representative from the college was there to talk about some of their issues. But I thought it went very well, very well.
Wonderful.
Anybody else got anything?
I do. And I might have you, Mr. Bradley, step up to the podium so you can answer these for me. Some of the viewing audience say sometimes they cannot hear answers from staff. If you would do that for me, please. Thank you. The first one is on the survey that were being conducted by the ETC Institute out of Olathe. A lot of people have wondered when those went out and how were they selected. I said, well, they're randomly selected. There's not any way, they're just random's random, but there was some questions on how they're randomly selected and when they went out and when they're due back in.
Per the contract with ETC, they were due to go out last week. It wasn't specific which day last week, but I would suspect that they went out at the tail end of the week. I did send an email late in the day to our contact with ETC to try and verify, because I thought this question might come up. I haven't had a chance to sneak out and check my emails. I may already have a response But they were supposed to go out last week, and if they didn't, then I'm sure they went out yesterday or today. People should be getting them in their mailbox anytime. They were randomly selected, and all I know is that they had a proprietary software that randomly selects addresses.
The other question is how many went out?
That I don't know. I do know that they guaranteed us a set number of responses. If I were them and I were expecting about a 30% return rate, I would have sent out about 2,400. If they're expecting that the people of Coffeyville are anxious for the surveys and want to return, they may have sent out less. If I were them, I would actually, and I'm not them, but what I would do is send out some and then kind of see what my response rate is coming back out and then send out more. I wouldn't want to unnecessarily send out too many because they have to pay for the printing, they have to pay for the postage. If I were them, that's how I would do it, and I would, also be sure to, because they have a call center too. I would get busy with some of my folks calling if we're getting close to that number. They had guaranteed us, I believe, 800 responses.
Okay. And my other question is, a couple of weeks ago at our last meeting, I had a list of changes requested for zoning codes, ordinances, and building requirements. And are any steps being taken to look into this or survey on this, or?
I know that that those had been, that Dennis had sent those on to Mr. Oxner, who is working on the city's zoning. It would take, at some point, it's not a, trying to be delicate here, it would take a consensus of this group or a majority of a group that they want to go forward. But I know that he was having him look at how we could incorporate those things if that's what this commission decided to do. And I know that I had proposed that we go through a process of public inclusion and try to get understanding and buy-in from the public about what it is they want to see with regard to the changes. Because there is a case, Mr. Williams made the argument that this commission, potentially 3 members on this commission, won't even be around in a couple of months, and that it is never wise to rush a policy decision like this. If this body, I would say, my recommendation would be that if this body were to make a rash decision and jump into those changes without getting buy-in from the public, you could just as easily have 2 or 3 new members elected who would undo the work that you would do now. So I think it behooves you to take a rational, slow approach. I don't want to mean slow, but it's slower than it is if you just make the changes next week, and get public opinion and really find out what it is that people want.
Deliberate.
Boy, if my mind was set to just run on and do that, you just talked me out of it. You did.
But on the
Well, it
newly-
was my 3rd time up here, and the 3rd time's a charm.
But in answer to Mr. Williams about the commercial businesses, that'd be grandfathered in. This is newly constructed. So just have an understanding that there's certain codes or building codes for them to follow on newly constructed. Not everybody go back and have to change all their buildings. That wouldn't be feasible. So,
Is that it?
I believe that's it.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that the street improvements are looking good. I wish we could do every street in town. We can't afford that, though, but I do see the progress is being made, and I appreciate it. I
Need to do
also,
Boulder.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get right on that, Max.
I don't know if it was washout or what, but drove by the new intersection there at 8th and, is it Luark?
Yeah.
And it looked like the northwest, corner. Looks like there was, I don't know if it was just dark or what, but it looked like the top of that curb below that, looked like there was, needed some additional.
Yeah, they've still got some backfill.
Okay, it looked like it needed backfill, because somebody went over the curb, they'd high center on it. Okay,
They should be getting that. And we're opening bids on 5 more intersections Thursday.
okay, so that will get backfilled in,
Yes,
because they can't, those that are listening can't hear you.
yes.
Okay, it is going to get backfilled. Okay, thank you.
And he also said that we are opening bids on Friday for 5 more intersections, or Thursday. And that, those are made possible because the bids came in so low for the intersections that we're doing now. So we're gonna do even more improvements, to some of the intersections in town.
I just want to make reference to the fact, and I hate to be a nitpicker, but these big semis are all over the community still. I see them driving a lot of places that they really shouldn't be. I don't have any authority. But as we place and replace and fill in, it's the big fellas that's really jacking up the streets. A lot. And I don't even know why they're there, because it's not a route. And so, thought I might just do a shout out like that. And then the other thing, I'll wait to say this one later.
I also wanted to thank staff for, I know we've been going through slowly and replacing street signs, and I've noticed that's continued to happen, and we're starting to see more of them along the main corridors being replaced, and that you're using larger blades. I think that's very helpful, and they look good. At some point, are we going to have to do some kind of a replacement program with the sidewalks where they intersect the streets, such as Independence is doing? Because they're going through and doing massive amounts of them, and I don't know if they're under I think they're under a court order. Are we under a similar order?
We're not under a court order. We were required to do a plan, and the city did complete that plan for ADA compliance. And when we go in and do sidewalk work where it's necessary, we do make those compliant.
Okay, I'd noticed that they've been doing that on the intersections that we've done so far. Gosh, there was something else I was gonna ask about the police dog, and I've had a number of folks that live in the general area of the 700 block of 6th Street call and email me, and they're concerned about dogs that are roaming in the evening hours, and as we get closer to the warmer weather, it's getting daylight, or there's more hours of daylight between the time the younger kids are getting out of school and the time it gets dark, and there's some concern that there might be an issue where a kid might get bitten, so that might be a place we want to look at.
Packs of dogs in the 700 block of 6th?
Yeah. And I drove over there, and I've taken a look a couple of times, including today, and I after 5 o'clock, and I noticed them. And I know Penn Street is we have a lot of streets that need work, and I mean, I wouldn't know where to begin if I only had a limited amount of money like we do. I know I was on Penn Street, which is on the far north end of town, and it's a dead-end street, and so I'm sure it's probably not as high a priority as a more highly traveled street.
Like Boulder.
Yeah, well, my concern though is that there's been a lot of digging done on Penn, and the city's gone back in and gravelled where the trenches have been dug, but that street is just, I was embarrassed. And I know that we're going through and we're trying to make up for lost time. For a long time, the city our street program was just, in my opinion, wasn't being executed the way that it should have, and that's not a comment on the staff that we have in place now, because I think what we're doing now is actually fixing the problems, and we're not overlaying streets and causing more long-term problems. But I just wish that we could, at some point, get a list of priorities as far as the streets go, and what we're going to fix, and project when we're going to fix it.
And right now, we're going through the process. This is in the report you're going to get tomorrow, so I'll take it out. Right now, we're going through the process of doing an assessment of all of our infrastructure. We've literally had a couple of employees driving every single street, getting out and rating every street in front of every house. We're doing an analysis of water lines, sewer lines, storm drains. We're doing everything we can to do an assessment so that we can put together a capital improvements plan in advance of the budget. We expect that CIP to be done around June.
Okay.
But we know that in advance of even the sales tax that you asked to be placed on the ballot, that we're going to have to come up with a plan of what we're going to do with that money. And we expect to have that done towards the middle to end of next month.
Well, in a contingency plan, if that sales tax doesn't pass.
Can you say that again?
I said, and a contingency plan for
Well, I
the
think our
possibility that that tax
contingency
doesn't
plan,
pass.
if that doesn't pass, is that we'll continue to use the limited sources of funds that we have now, but it will greatly hamper our abilities to
Yeah.
make additional improvements. As you said, we are kind of behind. Our resources have not been adequate to maintain the streets that we have, and it's going to take a concerted effort on the part of the commission and the community, and putting a lot of resources in towards infrastructure for a long time for us to get our streets where they need to be.
Chuck, would 4th Street qualify for any kind of grants from the state, from KDOT?
It's considered a minor arterial, and it could be considered for like an STP project, something of that nature, which Klein Road is going to be.
And the reason I ask is, and you all have probably gone out there and looked, since they cut out the intersection at 4th and Central, but I mean, you can, it's like cutting down a tree and you can see all the rings. You can see just the layers, the fact that there's really not much of an adequate base under what was there. And then you see the brick and just overlay after overlay of asphalt. And at some points on that street, there's even the curb looks like it was overlaid. And so I'm kind of curious if at some point maybe I was baffled. I thought, well, where's the curb at? And I looked down there and you could see it where they cut it out, but it was buried under asphalt. And I feel sure that we're doing the right thing and going through and, you know, fixing these intersections and, you know, to try to get better drainage through there. But my concern is, at some point, we're gonna have to go back on some of these streets like 4th Street. It almost looks to me like you're gonna have to dig the road out and completely start from scratch. And I didn't know if there were any kind of grants that were available for that or not.
It would be a major grant, but it could be like a STP project.
Yeah.
I will tell you, our inspector today noted that the brick that's underneath all that asphalt was in fantastic condition, and he thought maybe it'd be great to have brick streets again.
I think in some places that might be better than what we have.
Maybe we can sell that brick, recoup some of the cost.
And Louis, I drove down Columbus yesterday, and I feel like we have a number of streets like Columbus that maybe would do well with some kind of seal on them that, you know, maybe don't need entirely dug out and completely redone, but
We are looking into some different methods and materials.
that Nova Chip overlay seal that we put down on South Walnut really seems to be, I'm anxious to see what it looks like in July after it's gone through a cold and wet weather spell. But it looks good so far.
Question, they're doing a major clean out, I don't know who's doing it, but over between, Cedar on east side, Cedar and Sycamore, there's lots and trees and what have you been. What, is a structure gonna be built there or something?
Who's doing that?
Them are city-owned lots that we're going in and clearing out and grubbing, making it easier to maintain in the summer.
Ah.
Looks nice.
Well, I noticed. Okay. Okay, that looks nice.
Anything else?
Just one question for the police chief. How did your meeting go for, you had a meeting up here a couple of nights ago, didn't you? Yeah, Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah, we had our, I believe it was our third neighborhood watch meeting. It was great. We had a great turnout. We're continuing to get great feedback and great turnouts, and we're holding those meetings the first Thursday of each month at 6:30 in this room. And if I could quickly address the stray dog issue, especially for the benefit of our listening audience, one of the services that we do provide, that our animal control officer provides, is we do have a limited amount of live traps. We'll provide live traps for cats and for dogs. And so if there's a particular area or neighborhood where we've got stray dogs or stray cats, I would encourage the public to contact the police department and request that. It does take a resident to call and request that trap because we've got property that we've got to place it on and a little bit of instructions. And we only got so many traps, but that is a good resource that we do have. Our animal control officer works very hard, and he's busy from the time he starts work until he ends his day. But that would be a good resource to use if we've got stray dogs in a particular area. Thank you.
Tony, are the neighborhood watch programs, are they televised? I've had people ask.
Yes.
They are. We did have some technical difficulty on Thursday night where I don't think the audio was coming across. But I know a lot of people are listening because I got about 1,200 text messages saying they couldn't hear me and I'm messing with the machine all night. But we will have that remedied, even if I've got to pay Chris to be here next meeting to make sure that we're broadcasting accurately. We had a great presentation by our communications director, Chad Souls, about dispatch. I'm not sure who we've got next month. We will announce that. I know we'll have Paul and our animal control officer at one meeting, I think, which will be a good one to talk about some of the services that we do provide when it comes to those animal control issues.
If you get a chance, you need to come. I've been to all of them except the last one, and I was out of town. But Officer Sewell does a good job. Tony does a good job. We've had the county attorney there, and it's been a pretty good turnout each time.
We
Seems to be
have.
getting more and more, and I've
Yeah.
definitely heard from a lot of people who've been watching it on TV.
Yeah.
Especially the elderly.
Great. We had a little bit of an increase in burglaries last month, and we talked about that. I'll have to give credit to the sheriff's office who did an outstanding job on resolving a lot of those burglaries that were happening here in town because those same groups were hitting places outside of town as well. But a lot of those are solved by citizen involvement. Almost all of them are. So we're glad that the program's doing well.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Any others? Okay, we need to go into an executive session. Now let's take a 5-minute break. 7-minute break, okay. 7-minute for the lady. And so that means we have plus 10 minutes, so we'll come back 8:20.
Just a comment. Having spent 21 years in naval service, I take objection to the constant references to drunken sailors. Why can't it be a special spec 4 on a 3-day pass?
Faulkner, don't start.
Yeah, we're trying to steal my